Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast, and welcome back to NASCAR coverage for 2023. This is the first NASCAR video of 2023. And yeah, obviously, you know who I am. I'm Casey Campbell. And that, of course, is Nathan Solomon, the managing editor of the Podium Finish. How's it going, buddy?
Good, man. I'm honored to be the first NASCAR video of 2023.
You know what we get to talk about today? This is the Xfinity Series preview. How about that?
Woohoo.
All right, let's of course, of course the Xfinity series is heading it should be a big year, a lot of new faces in that series and some old faces as well. Uh Kind of talk about some big storylines heading into the Xfinity series for 2023.
Well, you named it. I mean, new faces, right? Like, I think we saw basically from like 2021 to 2022. I mean, the main driver core basically stayed exactly the same. This year, it is like completely different. I mean, really, there's only going to be a couple people like actually going for Rookie of the Year, but there's just so many new people in there. Like former Cup Series drivers are back. Like we have Cole Custer back. We have John Hunter Nemechek back. Obviously, Nemechek was in the Truck Series these last couple of years, but he had made it up to Cup Series before, because we have probably the three best drivers from last season: Noah Gragson, Ty Gibbs, and AJ Allmendinger all going up to the Cup Series. So certainly some big shoes to fill, and a lot of new drivers, a lot of drivers that were previously part-time going full-time, kind of filling that void here, and we're gonna have a completely new mix. So it should be a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. Let's kind of let's start with Stewart Haas Racing. Of course, there'll be a two-car team this year, I believe, for the first time since 2019. Cole Custer is in the double zero. Of course, he was in the Cup Series, but will be in Xfinity this year, driving a very familiar number. Of course, Riley Herbst is back in the 98. What are we expecting from those two? And a lot of people are thinking Cole Custer is just going to go out and dominate like he once did.
I agree to a degree. I mean, I think Custer is going to go out and have a pretty good year. I think we're seeing probably at least 4 or 5 wins, but like I mentioned, the Xfinity Series is really, really competitive this year. So it's going to be really hard to win races. But I do think that Cole Custer will probably be a 4 or 5 time winner. I think he'll probably be in the championship 4 or 2. Obviously, when he was in the Xfinity Series before, he was really, really good. And I think that Custer also coming back down to the Xfinity Series is not just going to help him because, yeah, I mean, things were tough for him in the Cup Series. He won in his rookie year, but ever since that win at Kentucky, it's really been a struggle for him. So I think coming back down to the Xfinity Series will really be helpful to him to kind of hone his skills a little bit. And I think he's also in a position where in a couple of years he could very well be back in the Cup Series. I mean, you look at Kevin Harvick, who's at the twilight of his career. Eric Almirola also probably not far behind him. We know Almirola will be back in 23 and maybe 24. We don't really know, beyond that, or even 2024 if that's for certain. But both of the drivers are at the pretty much end of their careers. So there's gonna be a couple of openings coming up here at in the Cup level at Stewart Haas once again. So if Custer comes down to the Xfinity Series and has a good year, maybe has 2 good years, then he could easily be back in a position to take one of those seats. So I think it'll be beneficial for him to get this experience in the Xfinity Series. But then same for Riley Herbst. I mean, he came the closest to when he's ever been last year, had his best year. His first couple years down in the Xfinity Series, I mean, he was kind of wild out there. Like, I mean, he was wrecking a lot of stuff, causing a lot of incidents. But in 2022, he seemed to really kind of develop a lot. Like, he seemed to take a big step, really consistent, lots of top 10 finishes, was doing a much better job keeping his car under control, not really causing any problems out there. I think Riley Herbst also gets the victory lane for the first time. I think having a teammate back down there will be very beneficial for him for his growth in the Xfinity Series.
All right, let's go to the team that's won the last 2 championships in Xfinity. Of course, that is Joe Gibbs Racing. They will have a completely new lineup this year, with Brandon Jones moving on to another team, which we'll get to in a minute. And then, of course, Ty Gibbs heading up to the Cup Series. Of course, Sammy Smith, who was the 2-time defending ARCA Menard Series East champion. He will be in the 18 car. And then John Hunter Nemechek, of course, who was in the Truck Series last year, is back in the Xfinity Series once again, but he'll be in the 20 car. Yes, the 20 returns to the Xfinity Series this year. And of course, they'll also have the 19 car, which will be driven by a couple drivers. I know Ryan Truex was announced. for about 6 races, but I know that the rest of that lineup will be announced in due time. But your outlook on Joe Gibbs Racing this year? Do you think they go? Do you think they go back to back to back?
I don't know if they go back to back to back, but I think they could probably get at least one of their two full time cars here into the championship race. I think Sammy Smith's obviously really really young. He showed some promise in his Xfinity slate last year. I want to say, Casey, maybe you can correct me on this. I want to say maybe he did around 8 races for JGR last year. So now he's full time. Again, had some ups and downs. I mean, I think he finished. I think he had like a third place at Watkins Glen. Had a couple other top 10 finishes, and there's some races where he crashed or maybe didn't have as good of a good of a season, good of a race. But I think that there might be some learning curve for him at some time. But I think he could certainly get into the playoffs, at least make the round of 8, and have a pretty good season overall. I think there's a good chance he finds victory lane. And then John Hunter Nemechek, obviously he's been one of the top Truck Series drivers the last couple of seasons. Made it to Cup full time in 2020. Made a Cup start this year in place of Bubba Wallace when he was suspended at Homestead Miami Speedway. I think John Hunter Nemechek still has a lot of potential. He's a very good race car driver. I think that we could see at least a couple of wins out of him this season and certainly be contender to potentially make the championship 4 as well. So I think at least one of the two JGR drivers will make the championship 4, but I think both will have pretty good years.
Let's stick with Toyota. Sam Hunt Racing. They have some big plans for 2023. They're actually going to expand to 2 cars, and for the first time in their team history, they have a full-time driver. Kaz Grala is back full-time. This is his first full-time season since 2017 when he drove for GMS in the Truck Series. So I know that obviously you and I have talked to Kaz many times throughout the years, and it's good to see him in a full-time ride. They'll also have a second car. Connor Mozak's going to run the majority of those races. The rest of the drivers will be announced at a later time. But overall, what is your outlook for Sam Hunt Racing? And Kaz Grala, I think, is going to be pretty competitive this year.
I agree. I think he's going to be competitive as well. I'm not sure if he'll necessarily be a playoff driver, but I think in the end, when the regular season finale kind of rolls around, I think he'll certainly be in the mix to make it. Sam Hunt Racing's in their 3rd year. Obviously, their equipment's a little bit older. They're just trying to get it to playoff caliber, and I think down the road they will. I mean, I think they have a ton of potential in these next few years. So it's just a growing process. But I'll say this, though. I mean, I don't know exactly how they will do on a lot of the ovals this year, but that is a really dangerous team on road courses. Extremely dangerous. Because Kaz Grala is a great road course racer. Connor Mozak's a great road course racer. Mozak's going to be in that car for the majority of races, and I believe all of the road courses for a good reason, because he's a great road course racer. Kaz, I think he was top 5 at Watkins Glen too. Mozak, he did a couple of road course races in the Xfinity Series, one for JGR, one for Sam Hunt, I believe, and I think had good runs in both of them. So Sam Hunt will be pretty tough to beat at road courses. I think maybe somebody like Kaz Grala could maybe sneak away with a win on one of the road courses and maybe get his way into the playoffs. But regardless, though, I think Kaz can be in contention to make a playoff spot. But I think a good goal for both teams would be at least top 20, maybe top 15 in owners' points.
All right. Of course, Connor Mozak also did Trans Am the last few seasons, so he should be pretty stout for him. And he's already had an interesting few months for him, and of course, he just got married a few months ago too. So good to see Connor and Kaz. It'll be fun. Kaz will be full time. Connor will run a majority of the races for that team in the 24 car. Now that is the second Sam Hunt car. Of course, Kaz will be in the 26. All right, let's go to Chevrolet Junior Motorsports. Lots of topics about them. Of course, lots of things happened. 3 cars in the championship 4. However, they did not win the championship. But a lot of changes going on over there. Brandon Jones is now in the 9 car with Noah Gragson and Luke Lambert heading to the Cup Series for Petty GMS. They've also shuffled the crew chiefs around, but a lot of them have familiar names. Of course, Josh Berry is with Taylor Moyer. Of course, who was with the 1 team last year. Of course, Josh and Taylor won together when they were at Martinsville in 2021. Justin Allgaier has Jim Pullman. Of course, those two won an ARCA championship back in 2008. And then Sam Mayer is with Marty Lindley. Of course, those two are very familiar with each other because, of course, they won both championships in the final year of the K&N East Series and the first year of the ARCA Menard Series East. Yeah, that was the transition that was made there. I'll start with Mayer because you got a chance to talk with him, and the article that you did was up on the podium finish currently as we speak. What was that like? Just overall, junior motorsports. What do you think about them? And then just what was it like? What did Sam Mayer have to say to you?
Yes, I mean they have three of their four drivers returning. Obviously, that's big. I mean, two of those three drivers made the championship for us. So I think you have to pencil those two in. You know, Josh Berry and Justin Allgaier, certainly championship favorites. I think there's a very good chance that both of them can get back into the championship four or do so. I mean, Josh Berry just conquering kind of that learning curve so quickly has been crazy impressive. I mean, he before 2021, he really didn't do much NASCAR National Series stuff, but he's really picked up on, how to race these intermediates so quickly, and he's one of the best in the Xfinity Series already. So that's really impressive. He'll certainly be one of the favorites. Justin Allgaier looking for that elusive first championship. I really think he's close. I really do. So I think 2023 could potentially be the year for them. Brandon Jones making the jump over there. I think that's a good get for Junior Motorsports. Jones has shown he can win at JGR. Might need a little bit more consistency. I think that he can find that at JRM because they had the absolute best equipment in the Xfinity Series last year. Obviously, didn't win the championship, but they had definitely had the best equipment. So I think that they'll probably be really fast again. They still have those old Hendrick chassis from the old Gen 6 car. Those are quick, and they'll still be really fast here for the next couple of years. So expect them to be really quick. And then the second part of it, Sam Mayer. I talked to them a couple weeks ago. Obviously, it's a big year for him. He's really the young talent there at Junior Motorsports now. Obviously, Josh Berry's still kind of up and coming, even though he's a bit older, but he's really the young talent, the highly touted prospect that really has a likely future in the Cup Series. And obviously, Sam Mayer is looking for that first win. But he mentioned how important this season is. He said, "Hey, this is the biggest year of my career, and I have to go out and not just be consistent because he was very consistent last year. He had a good consistent year for 2/3 of the year last year. Struggled a little bit over the summer, but." Really had a great playoffs, and nobody's talking about it because he just didn't have any playoff points last year. He was kind of so far out of it on playoff points. I think he finished top 6 or top 7 in all 3 round of 8 races, but he was in a must-win situation just because he didn't have any playoff points. But he just said, "Hey, if I can be consistent and get some wins here, that's all I need." Obviously he'd like to compete for a championship, but I think the big thing right now for him is just finding a way to win a race. And that's when I talked to him in July too, that's kind of the same thing he's saying. He's like, all right, I'm kind of starting to feel it now. Like I need to go win a race now that he finished 2022 and didn't win a race. I think he really feels it in 2023. It's definitely a big year for Sam Mayer, but overall, I'm still expecting another pretty good, pretty big year for Junior Motorsports, where I think all 4 drivers get to victory lane.
All right. Let's go now to another Chevrolet team, Colleague Racing, a team that did very, very well in 2021. Didn't have their best year in 2022, but I know AJ Allmendinger still had a pretty good season. But he's in the Cup Series now. Of course, Landon Castle is back in the 10. Daniel Hemrick returns to the 11, and Chandler Smith comes over to the 16 to take AJ Allmendinger's place. Your outlook for Colleague Racing, what is that going to be like? And what do you expect from Landon and Daniel in their second year with that team? And also, what do you expect from Chandler Smith? Of course, he's driving for also not just a new team, but a new manufacturer as well after spending all those years with Toyota.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to tie this into RCR a little bit because, RCR and Colleague are in that same, RCR alliance, right? And, talking to some of their drivers throughout the year in the Xfinity series, they said, hey, this whole alliance is just a little bit off this year. We're just a little bit off on speed. Can't really put our finger on it, but we know we're a little bit off on speed, and obviously that showed a lot last year. Really, they won a lot of wild card races, right? They won road course races, obviously with AJ. Austin Hill for RCR, he won a couple of plate races or super speedway races, or including Atlanta now. But if I'm not mistaken, I think AJ when he won. Gotta help me here. Which oval did he win? I forgot.
Well, he won a couple of them. Vegas. Michigan. Well, that was in 2021.
Vegas. Um, you know, that was, I believe, really the only oval win for that alliance this year, or just typical, like, you know, typical win, I guess, if that makes sense. Like outside of the super speedways and the road courses. Obviously, Big Machine had one with Tyler Reddick at Texas as well. They're in that alliance, but that whole alliance just they were a little bit off on speed. I think that after seeing how well that how well a junior motorsports ran, I think they realized that whole alliance that there's some urgency that we kind of got to pick it up here. So I think they're going to be better here in 2023. So I guess that's my overview for the alliance as a whole. But now kind of coming back to Colleague, you look at Daniel Hemrick, he's back for another season. Obviously, he was winless. If you're Daniel Hemrick, you got to win a race. I mean, he got into the playoffs, not by a whole lot, but he got in. And then Landon Castle, you know, showed promise at times, had some really good runs. Obviously, ended up just missing the playoffs with some, tough sequence at Bristol in the cutoff race there to end the regular season. But both of those guys, that's a step up. I'd say win a race, get into the playoffs, and then Chandler Smith. Obviously, he's really the only guy. Really only him and Sammy Smith, as of right now, I think are really the only two guys competing for Rookie of the Year in the Xfinity Series. But Chandler Smith is making that jump. He only has 2 Xfinity Series races total, I believe, 2 or 3, and so it's gonna be a huge jump, huge transition, new team, new manufacturer. Like you said, I think maybe beginning of the season you could see some growing pains at times, but I think towards the end of the season, or at least in the back half of the season, I think you can really see him start picking it up. I think Chandler Smith will be a playoff driver. At least on the fringe of making the round of 8. I'm not sure if he'll be able to necessarily make it or not, but I think he can have an okay first Xfinity Series season, maybe get to victory lane, but I think you'll see some growing pains. I mean, a lot of those guys that make that jump from trucks to Xfinity, you see some growing pains at first. Someone like Sheldon Creed, the first half of the season, you really saw some of the growing pains out of him, but the second half of the year, he kind of started to find it a little bit. I think Chandler Smith can be on a similar path, but I think he can still make the playoffs at the same time.
By the way, also it was made by AJ Allmendinger won in 2021, not 2022. That was Ty Gibbs won the first one, and then Josh Berry won the second one. So just want to make sure of that. And also, I did want to mention Jason Burdett will be Brandon Jones's crew chief. I forgot to mention that too. Let's I know you kind of mentioned RCR a little bit there. Of course, they're back as 2 cars, Sheldon Creed in the 2, Austin Hill in the 21. What are your expectations for the RCR Xfinity team?
Yeah, I'll start with Austin Hill. He had a pretty good year. I mean, he made it the round of 8, won a couple of times. Obviously, they're both super speedway style races, but he was close a lot of times. He had really good speed. Probably had the most speed on most of the traditional ovals of that entire alliance. So I think Austin Hill will probably get to victory lane at least a couple of times here in 2023. At least be in contention here to make the championship 4. I think Austin Hill is honestly one of the more underrated drivers in the NASCAR ranks as a whole, or at least kind of one of the prospects, if you will. I mean, he's a little bit older, so I think if people kind of count him out a little bit or discount him, but I think Austin Hill has a lot of potential, and I think he'll have a pretty good season here once again. But really big year for Sheldon Creed here in 2023. And I mean, I think he's kind of him and Sam Mayer are kind of in similar positions, right? I mean, um, they feel like they got to go out and win. And Sheldon Creed came close a couple times towards the end of 2022. Big year for him. I mean, he's got to go out, he's got to win, he's got to make the playoffs. He didn't do that last year. He ended up missing the playoffs. That obviously, in the Xfinity Series for RCR, that really can't happen. You got to go out and make the playoffs when you're in that type of equipment. So I think he can do that. I think he can be a round of 8 driver. I think both drivers can be in the round of 8. So big year for that entire organization, mainly though for Sheldon Creed. But I think both will have pretty good years.
Let's talk about another team in that RCR alliance. Let's talk about Big Machine Racing. They've got big plans for this year. Parker Kligerman's going to be full time in 2023. This is a huge year for them. Got a chance to talk to Parker myself back before Thanksgiving, and from talking with Parker a couple times throughout the last half of the season, he is so excited to get back full time again. And many people are saying he's not just going to compete well, but he's going to win at least a couple races. Many people are saying. What are we expecting from the 48 team this year?
Yeah, it's exciting to have Parker Kligerman back here full time. I think that'll be fun to watch. A fun personality. It's good that he'll be back behind the wheel though. We'll see him less on NBC, but I think it's for a good reason though. So it'll be fun to see him racing full time in the Xfinity series. And I agree. I think he can go out and win races. I mean, obviously showed he could do it in the Truck Series. He got a couple Truck Series wins there for a team you wouldn't necessarily think of as a winning team. So I think you put him in a really good car like that. I think that's a recipe for success. Obviously, we mentioned that entire alliance again. Had a bit of a rough year last year, but at the same time though, Tyler Reddick drove in victory lane at Texas Motor Speedway, so it's got some speed in there. So Kligerman's going to go into a really fast race car, and I think he'll be a playoff driver. I think he'll win at least once, maybe twice, or even more than that, and at least be in the mix to make the round of 8. But he's definitely a playoff driver in my book. I think we can have a really good year out of him, a good consistent year. Should be a lot of fun to watch. And big machine racing, they're really they've only been around for a couple of years in the NASCAR side, but they've improved dramatically over these last couple of years, and I expect that to continue.
Patrick Donahue and Keith Barnwell, that entire team has done an excellent job. We might be getting Patrick on. Patrick, my good buddy Patrick Donahue, might be coming on in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. So let's talk about a couple other teams I want to highlight. Alpha Prime Racing, of course, they've got big plans. They're going to be 3 cars this year with I know that Sage Karam and Ryan Ellis have a majority of races that they're going to be running. Plus, Jeffrey Earnhardt will be full-time in the 44 car, the first time that team has had a full-time driver. And I also want to talk about Jeremy Clements for a little bit. That team won at Daytona. They had to go through a lot to get it, but the result was there. Just talk about those two teams for a second. What are we expecting out of them, starting with Alpha Prime?
Yeah, I mean, Alpha Prime is, kind of exciting, right? They're the 3 cars now. Um, in 2022, the first 2/3 of the season was really a struggle. They were not performing well, but they found something right towards the end of the year. Like kind of starting, I think, with like kind of Watkins Glen, Michigan, around that time, and then through the rest of the regular season, the playoffs, they were really quick. I don't know what they found, but it seemed like it flipped, just suddenly. And they were really good, really competitive. They had a handful of top tens in there. I think that can continue in 2023. I mean, they have 5 or 6 guys announced already. We don't know if they're going to announce any more drivers right now, but they've got some really good drivers in there. I mean, Stephen Parsons, Sage Karam, they've shown a lot of potential. They had some great runs with Alpha Prime last year. I think Sage had a top 5 run going with our motorsports at the Charlotte Roval too, that ended up getting ruined. But Sage Karam has shown that he can take mid-pack equipment and elevate it. So I think both of those guys will make a great impact. But it's a big year though for Jeffrey Earnhardt. This is kind of his really his last kind of big chance here in NASCAR. He's got a full-time ride, hasn't had one of those in quite some time. Showed some glimpses last year. Obviously finished second there with RCR at Talladega. Had some top 15 finishes with Sam Hunt. So we'll see if we can kind of translate that over here to 2023. Have a good year. And again, I think a good goal for them, for Alpha Prime probably. This is just my expert opinion. Maybe try to see if they can get 2 cars in the top 20 of owners points. I think that'd be huge for them. And then you look at Jeremy Clements Racing. Obviously, yeah, they won at Daytona, and they got in the playoffs. That's huge for them. Second time they've been in the playoffs. Jeremy won a couple years back at Road America as well. But the difference here in 2022, I believe, from when he won at Road America, is he was in the owners' playoffs as well, which guarantees top 12 money. So that's huge for a team like that. So obviously they got probably the most money that they've ever gotten from a single season this past year from the owners points pool. So that's huge for a team. So I think Jeremy Clements Racing, they'll continue to improve next year. I mean, really in 2023 now. Honestly, in 2022, they were not having that great of a year before the win. Like they were really struggling. I mean, 2021, they obviously pointed their way into the playoffs. Sorry, 3rd time that they've been in the
Yeah,
playoffs. I forgot about 2021 for a moment, but I believe 2022 though was the first time they were in on the owner's side. So that's obviously a huge money change. But even though 2021 was a much more consistent year, 2022 was probably a worse year, even though it was highlighted by that win. But I think that they'll take a big step here in 2023 since they're going to have a little bit more money. I know that they've obviously been hoping to get some more Chevrolet support here for some time. Maybe with that, getting into the playoffs now again, that might help them. So I think they're only going to be going up here. I think Jeremy Clements is still going to kind of be kind of that family-owned team or kind of that mid-pack team to beat there, if you will.
Yeah. A couple other moves I want to make mention of. Of course, JD Motorsports will have two cars once again. Bailey Curry in the 4, Brennan Poole will be in the 6. Josh Williams is back full time with DGM Racing in the 92, so that will be exciting to see there. Obviously, there are still more teams to announce their plans. Yeah, I understand that BJ McLeod Motorsports will have, of course, Garrett. Oh yeah, forgot about them. Garrett Smithley will be in the 78 full time. Got a chance to talk with him before the season ended last year. From my understanding, they have a couple more cars. They'll run at least a couple more cars. I know the DGM will have some more plans to announce. SS Greenlight will have some plans to announce. And yeah, and also Jordan Anderson Racing too. So still some more announcements regarding Xfinity, and obviously stay tuned for that. What's your outlook for Xfinity this year? How do you think it's going to play out? Oh yeah, we forgot to talk about the schedule too. Lots of changes on that. Well, some changes. Obviously, they'll be on the street course at Chicago. They're also going to be at Sonoma. Plus, they're going to be at a lot of road courses this year. They're going to go to Portland. They're going to go to they will continue at Road America. And just some fun tracks as well. What are your thoughts on what the schedule is going to look like? A lot of road courses on there.
Yeah, it should be fun. I mean, I think it's 8 road courses this year or something. So that is a lot. I think that's the most they've ever had. So that's almost a quarter of the races are on road courses. I think they do have a good road course racing package, so that should definitely be fun. They're with another series, I think, for 6 of the 8 of them. Well, 7 of the 8 if you're going to include Portland with Harco West. But so I think Road America is really their only standalone. But it should be a lot of fun, though. They put on a good show wherever they go. I do wish there was maybe 1 or 2 more ovals in there. I'd like to see NASCAR overall go to a few different places, but I'll get off my soapbox on that. Um, but no, I don't think, you can put them at the same track 33 times a year, Casey, and they're going to put on a good show. So excited for it as always. It's going to be a lot of fun with this new driver mix. Probably the best racing package in all of NASCAR. They're going to be fun to watch as always.
Yeah, and of course they'll have a test at the end of the month here. I think they are testing the new rear skew on the car. So obviously we'll stay tuned to that. But overall, what's your outlook on how do you think things are going to play out in the NASCAR Xfinity series?
I don't know. Like there's so many new drivers. It's hard to even pick really favorites outside of a couple different guys right now. Except like, yeah, you got Cole Custer, you got the 2 junior motorsports guys that were in the championship for last year, so Allgaier and Josh Berry. But there's a lot of guys you don't know. You think they could have. You just don't know if they're gonna have a great year. Maybe they're not gonna perform well at all, right? So a lot of unknowns, and I think that since there's a complete different set of drivers, at least in the top half of the Xfinity points this year, I think it'll create a lot more storylines, and at least for us journalists, be fun to cover.
Absolutely. All right. Before we let you go, what's coming up on TPF in the next few weeks?
Not sure yet. You'll just have to wait and see. Hopefully, some more driver interviews and features here, but nothing confirmed here at the second. So maybe if we get some more driver news coming up, then that will mean some more fun stuff happening at TPF. Maybe some 2022 season review stuff, but you'll just have to check the podiumfinish.net and find out.
Sounds good. We'll check that out. And of course, we'll have some draw. And of course, there might be some news starting tomorrow. I saw Ryan Vargas tease something, so we'll have to see what that is. And we'll have more, and we'll have those covered on the channel. We might have some of those guys on to have that make announcements. But stay tuned, Nathan. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for previewing the Xfinity series.
Always a pleasure.